Good morning. My name is Wanda Minnings, and I am the chair of the Corporate Services Committee. It's 9 a.m., and I would like to call this meeting to order. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to agenda item C, delegations. Please be advised that in accordance with Council's procedural bylaw, no decision will be made at our meeting today regarding the two delegations we're about to hear. The committee will do one of the following. A, refer the matter to staff for a report, or B, refer the matter to future budget deliberations, or C, take no action. As I mentioned, we have two delegations presenting to committee this morning. And first, I would like to welcome Jane Dunlop and Eris Pecuniary, members of the Building Committee of the Coldwater Seniors Apartments Board of Directors, to the front. Thank you.
Good morning. My name's Eris Pecuniary, and forgive me. I'm new to all this, so if I screw up, please forgive me. I'm the president of a voluntary board of directors for the Coldwater Seniors Apartment Incorporated. We are a charitable nonprofit organization started in 1981. And I want to clarify, when I say charitable, we do not actively solicit donations from the general public. So it's strictly a nonprofit. Our goal since inception has been affordable housing for seniors, and it remains that today. No changes, nothing, no embellishments. Originally, we built 30 units with the help of the federal government, and we called that phase one. It was soon discovered that 30 units was not enough. The demand was much greater, so we doubled that shortly after with an additional 32 units. I'm not sure where to look. There's people all around me, so. That was with collaboration from the provincial government, and that's now referred to as phase two. Eventually, the provincial government downloaded their housing responsibilities, and the county of Simcoe took over the administration of it. And we've had a wonderful partner with them, and they continue to be so with planning for phase three. Did I get that right, Brad? Yeah, okay. Currently, we have a wait list of about 18 months. So the demand is still there. And we're now in a position to, again, almost double that with an additional, hopefully 59 units on the same site. We've had an amazing impact on Coldwater over the past 40 years, with about half of our units being RGI, that's rent geared to income, in other words, cheap. And it's always for seniors. Many of our board members are residents of Severn, so we know the region, we know the people very well. Many of our board members are seniors, so we know what our tenants, what their needs are. We understand them. And finally, we want to be in a position to offer financial sustainability and an area of stability in Coldwater, in Severn, and in Simcoe. We have the land and the desire to proceed with phase three. And with that, I'll hand it over to Jane, who is she's on our subcommittee tasked to develop phase three. Thank you.
Thanks, Eris, and good morning to committee and to staff. Thank you for allotting us this time this morning to discuss this not-for-profit seniors apartment build in Coldwater. I'm sure you've all had a chance to read your agendas and understand what our ask is. With me here today from the Coldwater Seniors Building Committee is Eris, Richard Maltby, myself, Jane Dunlop, and Larry Vanny, who still does work and is quite busy, was unable to attend today. From the County of Simcoe Social and Community Housing, who are working closely with us, is Brad Spiewak, Kira Thompson, Laura McCallum, and Rochelle Hamlin. The County of Simcoe is providing ongoing leadership and guidance with our committee to see this not-for-profit project to completion. We appreciate the fact that in the past, the Township of Severn has given generous support to a not-for-profit build such as Mariposa Hospice. Under the National Housing Strategy, there is a priority request for partnerships to be established between municipalities, service managers, and non-for-profit community agencies, which is both of us, municipality and the committee. At this point, we appreciate the Township of Severn to play a key role in waiving all fees for permits costs as we build this new not-for-profit seniors housing apartment. We have included an approximate list of fees that need to be waived, and this was given to me. This list was given to me by the Severn Planning Department. This opportunity supports an aging in place lifestyle for seniors. If you were to apply today for an apartment in Coldwater, it's a 5-year wait. Now I'm conflicting with you, but I just had a lady the other day say to me, I went in and applied and it's a 5-year list. Yeah.
That's.
We know it's quite a wait anyway.
There could be 2 different lists, one for RGI, one for market.
You're correct, Aries. That's right. So we have a rather unique situation here before us. This is the first time the County of Simcoe is entering into a partnership with a not-for-profit housing organization right here in our Township of Severn, and in fact, the County of Simcoe. This is a very important ask, one that the Township of Severn can choose to be a part of. I would ask that any of you can take the opportunity that don't know the area in Coldwater to take a drive over and visit this. It's at 11 Mill Street, and it's very important that you see it. Then you know exactly what we're talking about. So we have some pictures, and Allison's going to bring those up on the screen, and we'll just go through them. We bombarded Allison with a ton of pictures, but we think each one of them are very important. So this is the apartment building where it sits today. And in the background where all those trees are, that is our property. And it's a property that the first thing we have to do is rezone. So it would go right along, the 62 units would go right along the back. That would be the lower right-hand side. That's just a better look at it. Phase 1 and phase 2, and then the back zone, which is now the top left, is where the new build would go. This is the build that the county's finished in Tay Township. It's 3 stories, and that's just, it's something that we are looking at to copy, but we know there's some areas that we can save costs on. Again, this is the new build in Tay Township. That's a recreation center. Again, Tay Township, that would be an apartment. So they're very bright and friendly. Again, Tay Township. With lots of pictures of theirs. So this is just an overlay. So you can see the existing phase one and phase two, and then the overlay of the new apartment building will be right in the back. So it'll fit in quite well into that area. Again, it's just another picture of what we have in Coldwater already. No, I think that was it. Okay, so we'll close it off at that chair, and we'll open it up for questions to the county or to any of us.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone from the county that wanted to speak? Thank you. If you could just state your name and then your position. Thank you.
Yep. Good morning, Your Worship and members of council. My name is Brad Spiewak. I'm the Director of Social Housing at the County of Simcoe. So we're in a very interesting time, and some might say we're at a kind of the dawn of a new age. Our legacy housing providers like Coldwater Seniors are entering their end of mortgage, and what that is doing under the new legislation is opening the door for what we call new service agreements and new arrangements. But ultimately, the whole purpose of the change in legislation, and I don't know if you say the relaxing of the rules or this encouragement of partnerships, is to be able to generate more housing. So we have our legacy housing providers like Coldwater Seniors. They have a very similar mandate to the county and Simcoe County Housing Corporation, where we all want to make more housing. We all know the housing is needed in all of our communities, big and small. So this is a kind of a unique scenario that we brought forward to the Simcoe County Housing Board through the county or the Housing Corporation's master plan, where we've tried to map out all the potential builds. So we have an organization like Coldwater that has land. They have a little bit of capital they contribute, but certainly they're lacking the major capital resources, construction management, project management, and some of those other tools and systems that are needed to bring a build to successful completion, as we always say, on time and on budget, and that's the goal. Where the county and the Housing Corporation, we do have those resources. We have a fair bit of experience now. We're working on our 8th building now, so this has been an evolution going all the way back to 2010, and Bradford was our first build. So we try to take all those lessons learned, all those designs, the efficiencies of design, cost savings, and bring it forward. And so what they've shown you today is to try to bring that kind of marriage together, where we can share costs. And actually, that's great. Thank you, Alison. And generate a product like this that would be a very nice fit in the community. Members on committee that sit on county council will know certainly cost is always a big concern. We try to, in something like this, we've often heard the example when Tim Hortons or McDonald's build a restaurant, they often use the same restaurant to save costs. And this is a similar example to what you would see in the private sector. If we can take a building that was a good fit, very similar in another community, and just modify that design, try to save all those soft and design costs, and whether we grow it, shrink it just a little bit to make it fit, and obviously achieve the unit counts that we want. And that's kind of what's been presented here. So this is a slightly larger building. Victoria Harbour's building in Tate Township is a 41 unit building, where this is 59 currently. So just given the land size and setbacks, we're able to get a few more units on there. And you would have heard Eris speak about, some of that financial sustainability. So a larger number of units certainly meets a greater demand in the community. However, it also creates more rental revenue, which is important in the balance sheet, because the last thing we want is we jointly partner and get into what would be a losing proposition. That's not the goal here either. This needs to be a self-sustaining building that operates independent of basically the tax levy. So that's what we're presenting here.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Committee members, do you have any questions? Okay, we'll start with Member Taylor and maybe go down the row.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I think it's a good fit in the way of water and sewer, and you have the land, so it's good. But my question is to staff: how does this correlate to like new houses with the numbers that are being asked for by the province? I don't know if they've asked Andrew or Derek or Lori if they would, like, does one apartment equal one house, or how does that work trying to meet these 1.5 million homes that the premier's asking for?
Think the director of planning might be online. I don't know the answer to that. I'm assuming one unit is one home, but oh. Andrea has popped up.
Yeah, it's through the chair. That is correct. The units are units kind of thing, whether it's multi-res or houses, they're all homes. And the main thing is it is.
So that would help our housing count.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Member Brennan.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, great to see groups like yours do the fantastic stuff that should be done more of in this province. Anyway, I am curious about the kind of incomes for the people that are occupying your current scenario and future, if that's like, what kind of people are getting in here? What do you use the definition of affordable housing? And if so, what is it?
We do have several guidelines, I guess. One is for market rent, which is considered excuse me. It's-
Sorry, I'm just going to ask you to move the microphone
Yeah.
closer. It's hard to pick up on the YouTube thing.
Actually, I'll start with the RGI, rent geared to income, and that is a formula where people can pay what they can afford. And it is, some people simply have the pensions, the government pension that they have, the supplement, and that's all they have. So their rent is geared to their income. The market rent is based on an average. Yeah, please help me on that one.
Yeah, thank you. And through the chair. Yeah, so then the legacy housing providers, they're typically a 60-40 split is what's most, and they vary a little bit, where that would be 60% at RGI and 40% market. And that market would be what we would call 100% AMR, or average market rent, as defined by CMHC, or Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. And they publish those rents, call it annually, and we build off of that. So that would be what's in AIR's is current phase 1 and phase 2. When we come to phase 3, and again, the members of committee who sit on county council would know, Simcoe County Housing Corporation has an approved mandate for mixed market housing, what we call it. And we do that for 2 reasons. One, there's a social impact, and you try to spread out the various different levels of income in the building. And then there's also financial impact. So in any of our new buildings, and this would follow suit certainly on the units that we would be responsible for, is an 80-20 mix. So 80% of the units are affordable and 20% are at market. And so if market for us is 100 AMR, up to 120% AMR. To give you an idea though, in the real world, real true market is probably more like 140 or 150% AMR. I know that's confusing. You would think 100 AMR by definition should really be what's the true market number out there. So a common example would be if we were to look at 100 AMR of a typical apartment around 1,100, in real market, that could be easily much closer to $2,000 a month kind of thing. So that's the range where we sit. So that means 80% of the units are going to be at 80% of average market rent at 80 AMR, and 20% of the units, so 10 and 10 essentially, are at 100 and 120. So we try to make that range of incomes. Again, social cohesion, it's much better, but then also financially, the additional rent coming from the hundreds and the 120 AMRs is helping to offset the lower rents at 80. There is no new RGI. That doesn't really exist anymore. And RGI hasn't created more. There's no more funding for RGI. So any of the RGI units, they've basically were the last creations of around 2000, and there really hasn't been any since then. And so that's where we kind of work more in this affordable world now.
If I may supplementary to that, then would I be correct in saying that the RGI, that basic income is somewhere between $1,200 and $1,800 a month? Is that correct?
Our RGI as AIR's indicates.
That's all they're getting is old age pension, CPP. They're in around 1,800. Is that anywhere close to the number?
No, through the chair, it's extremely low. Laura, do you know, for max shelter for a senior is what, 384 or something?
Okay. Okay, so 30% is pretty.
Yeah, it's very low.
And just the final thing is, beautiful setting there in that first photograph that I saw. Even our local hospice has green space for the seniors. And, I'm just wondering, will you have any left? Will you have any left for for the seniors there? Or is there nearby facilities that they can enjoy?
There will be a little bit left. Unfortunately, a lot of those trees, sorry, my apologies. There will be a little bit of green space left, but the majority of those trees will have to come down for that building. Now, having said that, Coldwater is a very quaint little town with everything is in walking distance. So the existing tenants and residents are actually looking forward to the new build.
Thank you.
Okay, Member Cox, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you for this presentation. This is very much needed, especially in Coldwater. You could probably guarantee that if you went up and down the street, there'd be many houses that older people are staying in because there's no place for them to go and they don't want to leave Coldwater. So this is wonderful that you're moving ahead with this. Brad, thank you very much for all your input on this. So just a question, if these 80% are considered affordable housing, then that would affect the development charges, right?
The county is exempt from DCs anyways.
Pardon me?
Through the chair, yeah, the county, we don't pay DCs.
No.
As in,
So, but if we wanted to waive the municipal, right? Would part of that 80% be considered affordable?
100%, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm sure you've already talked to staff, but anyway, I'm glad that we're all working together and I look forward to continuing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Burkett.
Thank you through Madam Chair, and Aries and Jane, thank you very much for the presentation and thank you for what you do on the board. If any members of council, I know Member Taylor and Member Cox have been to the seniors complex. Cookies are at 3 o'clock. You can bring cookies for them. They'll make you a cup of tea. It's great to be there. Great group of people. I think this is a great project and led Brad. I know that you don't get to say, or people don't say thank you enough to you. I had to you and your colleagues, not just you. I know that you've got your colleagues behind you, but the build that you did on West Street, we had a tour and it's absolutely amazing. The thought that went into it, the things that are in that building. And I look forward to see this, to what the outcome of this one is in our village right here in Coldwater. So thank you very much to all of you for what you do.
Yeah, thank you very much for those kind words.
Thank you, Member McIntyre.
Thank you, through the chair. I also liked the presentation. It's fairly clear what your intentions are. I have one or two little questions. Do the people who are going to reside in this facility have to come from either Coldwater or Simcoe County, or could they be outside?
I think generally it's considered Simcoe County.
Simcoe
The
County?
majority come from much closer to the geographic area, but anybody in Simcoe County would be allowed in. Yeah.
Okay, and a supplementary question through the chair. Just quickly, if this all comes to fruition, how long are we going to ask? Are you going to ask for the township to give relief in terms of municipal taxes and other things? Is that ongoing, or is that just a one time?
I don't think we're asking for a relief in taxes. That's not.
I guess what I should have phrased it as, will you be looking for municipal tax relief? Because I didn't quite see it here.
It has never been discussed at the board. The only thing we're looking for are relief on the development charges, all the different, there's a list of, starting with rezoning. And then that's what we're asking for.
Thank you. Member Jansen.
Thank you. And through the chair, thank you very much for coming today and providing this presentation. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for Coldwater. As you mentioned, the city is, the village is very walkable. It already is a desirable area for seniors. For myself, I'd like to see that this matter be referred to staff for report so that council can make an informed decision.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to pass the chair for a moment so I can speak.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Absolutely up my my lane seeing affordable housing and certainly in the senior sector. So I do thank you for the work that you do across the whole county, and the supplementary information as part of the agenda that anyone can review is really enlightening. So thank you for that. My question is about the rent geared to income, because my mother lived in a rent geared to income for years in Toronto, and her rent was around $300 or $400 a month. Now, I wrote down early in the presentation that 50% of the units would be rent geared to income. But then when I heard the explanation to member Brennan's question, it went down to around 40% rent geared to income. And so I just want some clarification, because I'm in the West Shore, Cumberland Beach area, and I hear from people all the time who are on fixed income, seniors, through no fault of their own. And the cost of living is terrible for them. So when I'm looking at rent geared to income, it's sort of that's really the important sector that I would like to see. So I'm just curious about the percentage and if that's already been determined.
Yeah, the exact percentage has not been determined. It's really, we're trying to find a number where we can be self-sustainable, and that really is the key. So but it is in, the 50%, 40%, we don't have an exact number yet.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Madam Clerk, can we have a motion, please, to move this to a staff report, please?
Yes, so the motion reads that the delegation by Jane Dunlop, the Coldwater seniors in the County of Simcoe regarding the Coldwater Seniors Apartment and County Simcoe housing be received and referred for staff report.
Thank you, and it will be moved by member Cox and seconded by member Jansen. All in favor? And carried. Thank you very much for coming this morning.
Thank you.
Our second delegation this morning is from SEGBAY, and I would like to invite to the microphones Arthur Christakos and Lisa Buck. Thank you.
We can really clear a room, huh?
Thank you. And as with the other speakers, when you're speaking, just right into the microphone and then it's very clear on the video. Thanks.
Thank you. My name is Arthur Christakos. I'm the volunteer president of the SEGBAY, which until last year was the Southeast Georgian Bay Chamber of Commerce. It is now the Southeast Georgian Bay Chamber of Commerce and Tourism. Why is that? It is because when we look at all the sources of revenue and benefit that we can provide to our members and to our area, it largely depends on tourism. So it turns out by default, we're in the tourism business. Our directories, our maps, our engagements, and our social functions that we provide to our membership are basically largely tourism events. So on slide one, I'd like to just show you, this is how my brain works. I've got to have a center, figure out where to operate from and what to work on. So the center is member engagement and experience. It's very simple. You've got to network and get out in front of people, and we're trying to do that. 80% of success is showing up. So our chamber in the last 2 years has been very visibly high profile, and in your community, tremendously different from the previous 2 years. We're here a lot. Experience, this comes from customer moments of truth. People decide how they feel about things, and then they decide what they're going to do next. If they don't like the experience, they'll probably won't choose it again, whether it's a restaurant, a service, a tourism event, or a group of people to work with. So we work on that heavily. The target around is promotion, education, networking, and advocacy. And I've tried to put red dots where I think we touch upon Township of Severn in this particular area, and more, something we could speak to. Not today, there's a lot to talk about, but just where we would say that we've done a lot of different things for you. And I think we've touched on a whole bunch of areas that affect this council and staff. And I think a couple of years ago, that wasn't the case. So we're trying to build and target our trajectory in that direction. Basically, our goals for next year is to have 200 members or more. We have 11 directors, of which Dan Jansen is one, and we really appreciate his participation. We have one opening at this time. We have been operating on 20 hours a week for part-time staff, which is our executive director, Lisa Buck, sitting beside me. We won Employee of the Year last year. And we have recognized that over the last 2 years, we have too much demand for our services to live on 20 hours a week of office hours and office staff. So in advance of having enough revenue to support a second person, we've taken on a part-time second person for 10 hours a week. Happens to be a Coldwater resident, Sarah Carruthers, who also owns a business and advertises in our books. We're very happy about that because it gives us another window of opportunity and networking in the Coldwater area. Our website is a legacy website from a prominent provider, which is very insufficient for our needs in the current world of social media, e-commerce, and so forth. We're going to be changing that this winter. So that is some of the things that we need money for. We, as a chamber, being very small and in a largely rural area, we have limited data and analytics, whether it comes from townships, whether it comes from government. There's not a lot of information available to us on what's going on in the marketplace. I do most of that by observation. I observe cars, people, restaurants, attendance at events, and things like that. So that's basically the analytics that we have to go on. Selected events prior to a couple of years ago. Now we have a full calendar of engagement in your package that I provided. You can see that our website and our event calendar is highly populated with your events in your area. That's because you do a lot of things. You have an excellent program of engagement and reaching out to your own customers and tourists, and that's why it was easy for us to populate that with your events. And lastly, increased level of networking and promotion, and we're doing that all the time. We took on several new events this year, some of which are going to turn into annual events because they were extremely well received, some of which were marginally accepted. And I think we said, okay, we tested it, we're going to move forward in a different direction. So the bottom line for us is that we have received, and very much appreciative of the council, a grant of $4,000 a year towards our efforts. We also ask for money from the Township of Georgian Bay and the Township of Tay. Tay has not seen the value in our offering yet, but we're trying to get there. And we also receive a grant from the Township of Georgian Bay, in addition to our membership revenue, which makes up the vast majority of what we do. So our ask this year for primarily, and I'll just say, it's very hard to say exactly where the money goes, but one of the things that we can identify as a hard cost is our new 10 hours a week for our secondary staff, business administrator, and the website change and upgrade. So if we get option B referred to council or for a report, then maybe that would be the reasoning for the increase. Although it's a large increase compared to what we had. It's a small overall number, I think, for what it is that we're delivering today that perhaps we weren't delivering 2 years ago, for example. Okay, if we could change the slide. This is pretty simple. So what I introduced to this chamber is 30 minutes or 30 miles. And that's basically where tourism and people who decide to stay in the area, visit the area, go to Main Street, go to the Witches Walk, whatever, if they're not local residents and they're coming from elsewhere. This is basically, I think, the catchment area. These people are going to travel approximately 30 minutes to go somewhere in approximately 30 kilometers. So our previous world, we kind of limited ourselves to near the lock, the other side of the Severn Canal, and we didn't go as far as MacTier, Bala, and so forth. So the circle in the middle is basically the area we think that we help you with to the extent that you value that. We don't obviously operate on the east side of your community, but we do think on the west side that we're highly involved. So that is the concept behind 30 and 30. And next slide, please. Just again, these are just, this is our event calendar showing you the amount of Coldwater and area events that we do support and put out to our members and the tourism public. And we can go to I don't want to take you through each of those, but this is an example of the things that we did on the ground this year. We collected money for the food bank, and that's a picture of Lisa on the lawn at the church, I believe, where we handed over the check for the food bank, and several other things, including Discover Coldwater that we were at. this summer and some of the other things that we're part of. One thing that we do, which I believe you're very familiar with, because many of you participate in the Chamber Golf Tournament, charity golf tournament, which we raise money for different charities. Generally, we always have the Georgian Bay Hospital as our main donor. And then we also switch up the secondary donor. This year, it was the Cancer Support Center. And we were able to raise $38,000 this year, which is a big number for us. And that was divided between those two organizations. How does your grant to us help pay you back? Well, we all need that hospital. And as I'm getting older, and maybe you're realizing we see this place more often than we want to. So, and our friends do as well. So we think that that's one of the big contributions that we do. We don't keep any money. The Chamber keeps no money from that event. It is all raised with our own staff hours and our volunteer people. And that money goes right back into the community. Next, please. Again, just some more examples on this side of Lock 45 that we took place at. Members After 5 at Taylor Docks, they were extremely appreciative of having that promotion and having the member event at their building. The Coldwater Parade, which I absolutely enjoyed. It's my second year having been in that. It's a fabulous event. We have also something you may not know as much about is we host Starlight Children's Foundation. This year is at Starport. They bring 200 families with critically ill children to the area, and the Chamber participates in supporting both the summer event and the winter Motomax, which is snowmobiling, ATVing, and other things. So your community benefits by us hosting that for those people. The two main things, and on your desk, you have a visitor's guide and you have a map. So if you are not knowing who we are, if you don't know what township you're in, if you don't know where the lines are and the jurisdictions are, you're going to pick this up at our kiosk at the Petrocan. You're going to pick it up from hotelers, restaurants, associations all over. We produce 12,000 of these, and that's up from 8,000 2 years ago. It's been redesigned to make sure we incorporate and give space to, in particular, our member townships. So Coldwater is represented throughout the book and in the map. And the second thing that you have is a tearaway map that we provide at the kiosk at the Petrocan and many of these same locations. We do 10,000 of those a year. And they are all sold out every year. They all just disappear into the world of paper world. So the digital world that apparently was going to take over and replace all of this has not yet done so. There's a huge demand for having this type of information. So again, these are some of the benefits that you have when you support the Chamber of Commerce. Examples again of the map and how you're featured and how we direct people to your area. And just to wrap up on this portion is a huge thank you to the Township of Severn and for all your support. We'd also like to compliment you, and I mean this sincerely. You're a team. You're good to work with. You listen to us. We thank you for that, and we try to over-deliver when we participate in your events and give you value for the money that you donate back to our chamber. We have a SEGBAY TV, which is a television at the kiosk, the visitor kiosk in the Petrocan. You're always featured on that. We give you 2 to 3 ads per month, which would be $100 per ad. We don't charge for that as an in-kind offset for the support that we receive. So your community events and various things that you want to put up there go on our television. And there are, again, the analytics are not clear, but it's we heard a number of about 500,000 people pass through that plaza, and almost all of them use the washroom and go past that TV and the kiosk. We don't know if that's true or not, but it's the highest number we heard, so we're using it. It could be less than that. So that's the other thing, and we look forward to more promotion. We are working with the BIA. And I think everybody probably knows that it was a bit confrontational at first because it was like, what are you doing here? Stay on your side of the lock type thing. And having spent a couple of years working with the group, I think through other people helping us get to know them, we had proposed a new sign location down here. We were looking for township property for a new sign. And we are currently working and close to an agreement with the BIA for a new
business sign and the location, which we can't say we've settled on yet, but we're hoping to, in addition to the BIA, attract other members from the local area. And we appreciate your guidance and feedback. We've had some good stuff, and we look forward to greater service and impact on your township with your contribution to our chamber. Thank you very much.
Arthur and Lisa, for your presentation. Committee members, do you have any questions? Member Taylor and then Member Brennan.
Being a former alumni and director, I was impressed with what SEGBAY did back then, and I'm still impressed. So I think you're doing a great job. And Arthur, how long have you been on? How many as chair there?
Yeah, so this will be October's my second anniversary. So
it's
I'm going in my third term.
Great to work with you, and I think you're doing a good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I share Member Taylor's comments with regard to what I'm seeing here. It's pretty neat. Oh, I have a few questions for you though. I have a sense from what you were saying that you might be lined up with Destination Canada's objectives or some of the work they've done. Some of your comments overlap some of their goals, like maximizing social, cultural, economic impact, and so forth. Your governance stuff and so on. If you aren't, with regard to your comment on analytics, they have now, whether or not these tools would be something you would use in conjunction with our recreational director or on your own, but they have resources and tools for analytics that are that seem to be going up very well. Two of those are the social return on investment, or SROI program they have, and the other one is Wealth and Wellbeing Index. But there are more, and I think at least one of them relates directly to the private tourism sector's profit. So there are some tools out there that you may or may not know about. I don't want to preach to the converted here, but it's my understanding that they're out there. And if they are and you're not using them, I'd love to know why. And then finally, just based on work I do on committees, the idea of coordinating events is a brutal challenge for all of us. It's one thing is to come up with a calendar. It's another thing to line people up to carry out major events. And I'm just wondering, as part of your efforts to succeed, is there any amount of coordination, either here and with other, like the BIA, with regard to events to optimize volunteer efforts, if you will? Anyway, I would love your comments on those.
To your first point, no, we haven't been using Destinations Canada as a guideline or as a center of content. We would like to add that and look at what they have to offer. The township of Georgian Bay also has some analytics and things. I find that they are received with skepticism from the actual members, because they are they're abstract in nature. You can't put your finger on exactly who it is. I have found in my business career that people respond more directly when you can point to physical names, faces, locations, and behaviors that are observable by anybody. And I have defaulted to that, which is just a style choice on my own, because the members relate to 30 people at an event, 50 people at an event, 10 of them bought things, different things on the website and so forth. They take that information as more credible than something that might appear in a report, even though the report may be perfectly justified and valid. So that is just a on the ground working principle to show people that we've accomplished something on your behalf. And all right, did that answer both questions?
Okay, Member Cox.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I think this will probably be referred to budget. And the other one I wanted to talk to you about is if we're talking Severn Township, we have to remember that it's past Coldwater.
Right.
So we have Washago with parades, we have the Otis Park, And those are two that I would probably, and West, no, I got you here. Don't worry, you're in my list. You're in my list. I'm working my way over. I'd start with Otis Park. They have many events that can probably be tuned in with some of the things that are in Coldwater maybe on the same weekend, or that you have, or Midland, like those areas where we all should be organizing. Go here in the morning, go there in the afternoon. Like we did the trick or treat on Main Street, and I was handing out hot dogs with the Lions Club, and I said, you know, when you're finished here, you can go to Otis Park. There's a fair, and they were like, oh, so we need to do more of that coordinating. And then you move up to West Shore. They've got some events that they've been putting on. Want to probably contact for you for that one. And then you go to Washago, and there's always our two parades and different things. And if we can coordinate a person that might be able to send you the information and you could put that out there, then I would feel better about saying Severn Township, not just Coldwater. So those are things I think that we can improve on in the future. But thank you very much for all the hard work you do. I appreciate it. We're working well together. We're trying to pretend that that boundary is not there between that poor little village of Port Severn, and we try to work all as one. So you put on some very wonderful events. You have your business awards and different things, and we really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback. And we are, as you can see by my second slide, our boundaries are abstract because of items just like this. You're pointing us to areas that we might not have had the staffing to do or whatever, but we're open to it, and we're happy to expand what it is that we offer to include that. So we're trying to provide what people are asking of us, and not restrict to jurisdictions.
Just supplemental. So those are just events that you could help advertise for us, because if you have a tourist in Port Severn or in Honey Harbor and they're looking for something to do, they can open that book and go, oh, look, like I said before, this and this and this. So anyway, we can help you out with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Member Burkett.
Thank you through you, Madam Chair, and thank to both of you for everything that you do. And just to build on Member Cox's point, weekends when tourists are here, and of course they're not sure what to do, they don't know what's in the area. This is a great map. If it somehow found its way over to the other side, and I hate to dispute the other side, but there's ways, like back roads that are all paved, and it's a beautiful drive through the country right over to, you know, both sides, right? It works out really well. So if we could just add on to it, that would be great. And thank you again. Well done.
Yeah, so help us, you know, we're also aware there's a second Chamber of Commerce, right? In the Orillia area, or, yeah. So we're happy to go as far as we're welcome to go. We're just trying to be respectful, and we had some early indications a year ago that maybe even Coldwater was going a little bit too far for us. That's probably a chamber thing. It's probably not in the township world, but we're happy to go where you want us to go.
Okay, thank you very much. Over to the clerk for a motion, please.
Thank you. The motion reads that the delegation by Christakos from SEGBAY regarding the general update in 2025. Did I say that wrong?
It's Arthur. I know in the agenda it says Chris,
Oh.
but
I've had
First,
Christakos, crispy crackers. It's okay. It's better than those.
Apologies. Regarding a general update in 2025 budget request be received and referred to budget.
thank you. May I have a mover? Moved by Member McIntyre, seconded by Member Taylor. All in favor? And carried. Thank you both very much.
Thank you
Lisa
very
and
much.
Arthur. Okay, we're turning to agenda item D, our consent agenda. Would anyone like to pull an item from the consent agenda? Okay, no items being pulled today, so may we have a motion?
Certainly, the motion reads that the agenda be adopted, including consent items as circulated.
Moved by Member Jansen, seconded by Member Cox. All in favor? And carried. Thank you. Agenda item E, Madam Clerk. Oh, sorry, we just approved the agenda. Yes, sorry. I'm going to my notes, which are not always reliable. Agenda item F, reports from officials for direction. Before the start of the meeting, just for everyone's knowledge, I asked that item F.3.1 the Corporate Services Report C24004 regarding the 2025 high-level budget assumption be brought to the first agenda item under F. So over to you, Mr. Plunkett. We're going to start with that item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I won't read the whole report verbatim, but I will point out the items in the highlights. It lets you know the different, different levies that we do have. So when I talk about the municipal levy, I talk about just municipal operations alone. When I talk about, and then you'll see on here, we have a combined, which is when we add policing and the municipal component together, that actually makes up the full municipal operations. The other components of our levy come from the county of Simcoe and come from the school board, so the education for the province. So when I mention $132,000 is 1% of our municipal levy, that is strictly just the municipal component of our tax bill. When I say 154,000 is 1% of our combined municipal levy, that includes policing. Now, we have separated it on our tax bill, and we did that several years ago intentionally to be able to be transparent as to how much policing costs compared to the rest of the municipal levy. And then when I say 315,000 is 1% of the blended tax levy, that is what, that 1% is what you pay on your final tax bill, because it combines the county and the school board and both components of our municipal levy. So a 1% increase on the tax levy for a resident is a $315,000 increase in costs on an annual basis for the township. And then you'll notice in the report, it does suggest that we're looking at somewhere between $1.9 and $2.8 million need for the 2025 budget, based on all of the, deliverables that we have had come out of some of our consulting reports lately, some of council's direction, and of course, it's just general inflation in items such as that. So we do have approximately somewhere between 1.9 and 2.8 million. That does include, I know we didn't bring the report forward for the OPP, but it does include a $500,000 increase in the OPP costs for 2025. And that is about a 22.5% increase in our bill. And that is not just us, that's province-wide, it looks like, and most of the other municipalities in the province that have provided us their data, they're somewhere over 20% increase as well. And then I'll open it to council to ask any questions.
Thank you. Well said. Do the committee members have any questions? Okay, I'll pass the chair. I have a question, please. Thank you.
No, proceed.
Thank you. Thank you for the explanation. That was something that I needed to hear after reading that, so that helps me understand the different percentages. When the budget comes to council next month, my question is around the list of levy pressures. So it starts with some of the capital costs, the West Shore Recreation Facility, 15 million, admin center renovations, and etc. How much or what percentage of that will come from the reserve? Because over the year, I've heard that as we're talking about some bigger expenditures, that we will be also pulling from our reserve. So in preparation of thinking about the budget, could you help me understand the increases, the total costs, and where the reserve comes into play? Thank you.
So if I can, Madam Chair, the capital items that you do see on here are almost fully funded from, if we were to do them, they would need to be fully funded from the reserves or a significant increase in the levy over and above what I've already mentioned. The other option is there's certainly the ability to debt finance some of these items. You'll notice that the total list for those capital items actually exceeds our existing reserves in their entirety. So we certainly could not fund all of those projects ourselves from reserves. But they are not a levy impact. So, right, at least currently they're not a levy impact. They certainly could become a levy impact depending on how we wanted to finance them, but they're not included in that effectively the $2.5 million increase in costs that will impact the levy if they were to go forward.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll take the chair back. I'm just looking. Oh, Member Taylor, thank you.
Yeah, well, just a very good report through the chair to, and just to my thoughts. We've hired a lot of people in 2024. And on here, there's 4 new positions for 2025, which quick addition, 500,000, 600,000 a year. And I think we should put a freeze on any new hires in 2025 and reevaluate a year from now. But those are just my thoughts. And flipping to the next page, and this will come up in the budget, the aerial truck has been on, I've been on council 25 years, and this comes up every 3 or 4 years. And that's a lot of money. And we do have an agreement with Romero and the city of Orillia. And so we can discuss this at budget time that I think we don't need that. And I am in favor of the West Shore Rec Center, but at $15 million, we really have to get our funding in act with provincial and federal. We need help in that. We can't do that by ourselves. So that's just my thoughts. And then I have to take a real hard look at the expansion of this building here at $5 million. And so those are questions whether I'm interested in what the committee says, but my main focus today is no new hires in 2025. Those are my thoughts.
Okay, thank you, Member Taylor. Member Cox?
Yeah, I really feel that this something was a good overview to give us what the blended meant, what everything else meant, and I didn't really want to go into because I know we're going to hit it at our budget. But I don't want to be rude, but I think there's only 3 new hires. Sorry. It just says new. Those are the other ones we've already hired.
Well, I guess I'm counting in IT managed at 120 grand.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, the whole point of this is that I really appreciate this heads up and where we're at and what is going to go on. And it sort of helps me when we get everything in, that it gives my head a circle on it and I can be thinking about it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Over to Member Burkett. Thank you.
Thank you through you, Madam Chair. And this is a great segue to when we start our budget. But I think if you look at what other municipalities are facing, we're in the same boat. We've got some huge challenges and struggles that we're going to need to talk about at budget time. So thank you, Andrew, for this. So it gives it, as I said, a segue into what we can expect in November. Looking forward to it. Great discussion at this table.
Thank you, Member Cox.
I'm sorry. Yesterday at the county, I had different county councilors saying the policing has made a 7% increase on their budget and they haven't even gone to budget. Some of them are up to 8%. And we commented and I said, I've been in this a long time and I'm going to tell you, I think this is it's going to be one of the hardest budgets I've ever looked at. And they all agreed. They're all in the same boat. Like, I mean, you've got I am people with wastewater, $20 million, $212 million. I mean, they're all looking at, and infrastructure is a big one, and they're all saying the same thing. And I know that the mayor will talk about the meeting he went to on Friday, but they're all saying the same thing. Our infrastructures are so in disrepair, and the cost to fix them and replace them is so high that we need to have something come to us from the province, not on more of a, here's the pot, everybody grab, here's what's allocated more so. And that was around years ago, because you can't make a plan. Like no offense to West Shore Community Center, it was 7 million before, and now it's going to be 15. but we can't even make a real plan for it because we're still sitting there waiting if we can get a little piece that somebody else wants a little piece. So these are things that are really affecting all of us at this time, that the funding isn't there and the province continues to download responsibilities to us, but not send the money. And it's very frustrating. I mean, and I'm going to be maybe a little like off cuff here, but for them to say they want a pothole maintenance program and they're going to send us something, we got bridges that need to be replaced. We have more important big things that need to be done, and we need that infrastructure money. Okay, thank you. That was my grandstand.
Thank you. Okay. Member Burkett.
I wasn't, sorry, through you, Madam Chair, I wasn't going to speak to this until we had our updates, but I may as well talk about it. So at that roundtable that we had I was invited to, am I able to speak to it because it pertains to infrastructure and budgetary items, Madam Clerk? Okay. So the three ministers that were there, Minister Thompson, Minister Dunlop, Minister Graydon Smith, they invited, of course, there were CAOs, there were planners, there were elected officials from Muskoka, from Severn, and the same theme was there. So the feds have allowed immigration to a huge immigration from abroad, and now the province is stuck trying to build 1.5 million homes, and to Member Cox's point, no infrastructure to back it, no money to back it, and we're facing the same challenges. And I heard that from each and every person that was at that roundtable, that yes, we want to provide those homes, but how do we do it? And look what we face just in our 2 wastewater plants. I think 15 million for the Coldwater one and 8 million for the West Shore one. So we've got some huge obstacles and challenges, and I'm not sure how we're going to achieve it, but we're not the only ones. As Member Cox has said, like there's budget time is going to be an interesting time, and I'm looking forward to it actually with Andrew's guidance, because he's going to remind us that I'm not sure what he's going to remind us, but I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, so yeah, I'm not going to go into details on this, but I think I know I'm going into budget with this in mind, without having seen the budget package yet. It's not available to any of us. What Member Cox said, when I think you were talking about a different level of government, and I think Member Burkett just alluded to the 2 other levels of government. If the money isn't there, ... And I'm going into our municipal budget, which is the only thing that we really should be discussing and can control, that if the money isn't there, this may not be the year to fund some of our projects. That's a statement that I'm just going to make and leave it there. So I agree, money isn't there, period. Okay, and if there aren't any other comments, we'll go to the clerk for a motion, please.
Okay, the motion reads that the corporate services report C24-004 dated October 23rd, 2024 regarding the 2025 high-level budget assumptions be received, and that the proposed budget assumptions outlined in this report be considered in the draft 2025 budget for council's deliberation.
Thank you. Moved by Member Brennan, seconded by Member Cox. All in favor? And carried. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going back to the normal order of the agenda. Right now, we're on item F 1.1, Recreation Report R24-017, Non-Resident Recreation Agreement with Orillia. And over to Mr. Craig Belfry, please.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. Before you have a report that was given to staff to explore options with the city of Orillia for a shared recreation agreement. This was part of the strategic action plan of the municipality under the direction of infrastructure to match growth. 2 parts of that strategic plan were first creating the recreation master plan. Then the second part was to explore partnerships with nearby municipalities on shared recreation agreements, similar to what other municipalities in the county have. So over the summer, I entered into discussions with the city of Orillia on their recreation programs and seeing what options we have. currently right now, 7 residents are charged an upcharge of 30% on the recreation fee on top of the regular recreation fee to do any kinds of programming, which involves swimming, camps, fitness centers, those kind of things. It doesn't include ice. Ice is at a flat rate for anybody to rent in the facilities. So based on that, entering in discussions, which what I thought would be maybe achievable, quickly became that it was quite a large amount of money that the city of Orillia is generating off of 7 residents. So they're generating almost $250,000 off the surcharge alone on the recreation programs, which for their new recreation center that they have, the residents are getting daily, monthly passes to the fitness center, using the pool, using the gym, and generating those numbers. So before you have the numbers that the city of Orillia gave me on the registrations, those registrations aren't exactly individuals, but program registrations. So people can register multiple times to generate that. So it became pretty apparent that a good chunk of that budget of the new recreation facility in the city of Orillia is being driven by 7 residents, which is good news and bad news for us. Good news is there's a desire in our community for recreational programming. So looking to the future, that's a good thing. But the attainable, looking at a shared recreation agreement of the municipality picking up the surcharge of $250,000 to cover, which was what we are looking to go into, represents a 2% increase on your tax levy, which seems a bit extreme to cost sharing. Like recreation was always based on subsidization, but this is a very large subsidization for a non-confirmed small amount of the population. So to us, it wasn't making a lot of sense. To the city of Orillia, any kind of reciprocal agreement, we don't offer the programs yet. We're not at that level. So a shared for them to come back and what can you offer us? Because we're just at the beginning of rebooting our recreational program. So we're not at the same level. Hopefully one day we will be at that level. So before you, I presented 2 options, which was enter into a recreation agreement with them at $250,000, which we are not recommending doing that. So that quickly came off the table. The other option would be, as we move down the road, and hopefully we do see some kind of funding for the West Shore Recreation Facility, that once we get on a more developed level, that it's more beneficial for us to walk back to the city of Orillia, because we know we have residents that are in their programs. And if we can pull them back home, then that we can enter into discussions again. So that's the option we're presenting before you, is that the council direct staff to explore the agreement again once the West Shore facility is operational. So, and I'll leave it at that for questions.
Thank you very much. Over to the committee, Member Taylor.
Yeah, through the chair to Greg. So does this mirror our library contract in any way, shape, or form? Or because I don't think there's a 30% upcharge for the residents.
Through the chair to the member, no, it would be much more extreme than the library. The library amount is very attainable for the community. It was something that was generated a long time ago. We would have been in a more beneficial place if these discussions were before the new facility was built in Orillia, and they saw the draw that they're pulling off of us. So much like the library agreement, which is a long-standing agreement, so it only raised this is an extreme one. To be honest, I haven't seen one this big before. So,
and just one further follow-up. The new West Shore area facility won't have a pool, and there is a pool in Orillia. So I think we should do something to help our residents using Orillia, but I'm not quite sure what the solution there is. But based on those numbers, I agree with the recommendation today. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Brennan.
Yeah, thank you for your report. I agree with your recommendation with regard to the 250K. I agree with your comments on West Shore. We really also need to seek a stronger, more proactive partnership with the Otis Park
that is Ward 3's community center. It does provide significant, if not, I don't know whether they're measured by this, by Severn Township, but significant recreational opportunities, and the potential exists for more. And at the end of the day, it's going nowhere. It's ours. As far as the library goes, we get a better deal with the taxpayers of Orillia. There is nothing like the recreational thing we talked about. The people want to help cover the costs of their facility there, and we get a tremendous deal that we otherwise, we benefit so much from that. Everyone here knows I'm a pretty big proponent of that library, but we get a good deal.
Thank you. Member Cox?
Sorry, through the chair to Craig. Is there any way we can find out what activities they are signing up for to help us plan for our programming?
Through the chair to the member, we can try that. This is the information they've given us, but we do have a staff person that used to work there, so we know that hopefully Stephanie can help us out with that and see. But yeah, I agree. Like, we are looking at, like, those were the questions I had, like how many camp, and trying to delve into their booking system more and how much they're willing to give us is who's exactly and what, but we can try and figure that out a bit more.
Yeah, through the chair. I just thought that might be helpful for us making our plans in the future for up in that area. So anyway, good try, but we can do that. Thank you.
Member Burkett?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair, to Craig. Thank you, Craig, for the report, and I support your recommendation. But further to Member Cox's comments, I guess they wouldn't divulge where in Severn the users are coming from, would they? But just to Member Brennan's point, like if Otis Park, if they're coming from Ward 3, I'm just curious as to where they're coming from.
Through the chair to the member, they didn't divulge that to us. Those were conversations I was trying to get out of them, but they weren't going that much into their system, and we don't have access to them. But I would estimate that we're estimating is people are probably coming within less than 20 kilometers there. So they're coming from the corridor, they're coming from this area, Otis Park area, like right on the edge. They're not coming all the way down. And they're going to use that fitness center, like it's the fitness center, walking track and gym. And the pool is a large driver too, obviously.
Thank you, Member Brennan.
Yeah, just if I may, on that, I have no doubt that Ward 3 is a heavy user of Orillia services based on my meet and greet work that I do in the ward. And that spans right from Brennan Line, right across, and definitely Marchmount is a heavy user of those resources as well, as one would expect. And I think you're bang on about the geography. I think it's Ward 3, probably Ward 4, although I don't know anything about Ward 4 stuff, but definitely heavy use. And the concerns people have are the cost of the hockey rinks, like, sports, and the pool. That's the two biggest things that come up. I mean, people would like some of the other things, but there's a consistency to those two items in anecdotal answer to your question.
Thank you. Over to the Madam Clerk for a motion, please.
Okay, the motion reads that Recreation Report number R24-017 dated October 23rd, 2024, regarding a potential non-resident recreation agreement with the city of Orillia be received for information. And further, that council directs staff to explore a non-resident recreational agreement again after the West Shore Recreation Facility is operational.
Thank you. Do I have a mover? Moved by Member Taylor, seconded by Member Cox, all in agreement, and it's carried. Thank you very much. F 2.1 Public Works Report W24036 Coldwater Road Sidewalk. Over to Mr. Burke, please.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. So this report outlines a budget exceedance for the Coldwater Road sidewalk extension, and that's from the tail end of Foodland, give or take, over to the new Brandon Avenue. So it's not a very long stretch, but it's an integral connection to reduce some of the fragmentation that we have in that area. It'll improve operations and it'll improve connectivity. to the new community and to the neighboring heading up to the main street. So we think it's a very valuable project. We think it's an important project. The pricing here is good, although over budget. And so we're looking for the additional, I think it's $166,000 to advance this project here in the fall.
Thank you very much. Over to the committee, Member Taylor, please, and then Member Cox.
Through the chair to Derek, is there a new sidewalk going in on Gill Street?
Through the chair, not an imminent plan for that, but in our transportation master plan, there is identified a new connection from same thing, the Greenwood Landing subdivision to the main street through Gill Street. We're undertaking some design work. We're actually going to have another report for committee here to look at some options of not expropriating land and taking land and widening the 15-meter right of way and creating a hybrid cross section to alleviate those concerns, but still provide a one-sided sidewalk. So I think that's in the works in terms of design, but no immediate construction is scheduled for 2024 or 25 in that matter.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Member Cox, please. Okay, we'll go to Member Jansen, please, and then Member Cox.
Thank you. And through the chair, Derek, thanks for putting this together. I do believe that the sidewalk is needed. The community that's being created at Greenwood Landing subdivision is growing and residents will be walking. I think by having the connected sidewalk, it will create a safe walking path for our residents. Currently right now, without the walking path, they may be transiting through the Foodland parking lot, which would not be the safest route. By putting in this sidewalk, it will not only provide for a safe walking path, but also I believe it would add to the beautification of the area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Member Cox.
Yep. Through the chair, I agree with what Member Jansen said. And that was my concern with safety, because I note the other day, there is a bus stop there and I'm not sure which school it is, but they're standing there. The other one too is when you stop and think that when the South Horn Road property is developed, a lot of people, instead of going along the side of the road on Coldwater Road out and up to South Horn, because they all walk that way, they will probably now continue to go along that sidewalk into the subdivision, cut up through South Horn and get their walk in, but not have to worry about traffic and people and mud. I mean, I've walked it for years. A lot of people are already doing that. So I think that's a big thing to me, is the safety and the fact that we can alleviate that traffic, walking traffic on Coldwater Road, and have them take that little route around. They're still getting their steps in, but it's a lot safer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And from me, just a huge thank you to Mr. Burke for putting in the section about where the money was coming from and the balance and the reserves. Okay, Mr. Plunkett, that I really do appreciate you adding those details. So that's very helpful to know. May we have a motion, please?
Thank you. Motion reads that Public Works Report number W24-036 dated October 23rd, 2024, with respect to Coldwater Road sidewalk be received, and further that the budget be increased to $166,200, and further that the bid received by Four Brothers Construction, the amount of $155,375 plus HST be accepted, and further that the deficiency be funded from the capital reserve.
Thank you. May I have a mover? Moved by Member Jansen, seconded by Member Cox. All in favor? And carried. Thank you very much. Our next item is F 2.2, Public Works Report number W24-033, Defacto speed limits, rural roads. Over to Alex Vieira, please, for presenting your report.
For the chair, good morning. So this report and potential policy change stems from ongoing resident desire for lower operating speed in our roadways. Our current guideline for establishing posted speed limits relies on Transportation Association of Canada's automated speed limit spreadsheet, which is a tool that myself and other municipalities use for evaluating traffic studies. So this spreadsheet looks at things like road characteristics, which include the average driver speed, road classifications, traffic volumes, roadway geometry, clear zones, and pedestrian exposure and more. I've completed many studies on our roadways over the last few years. These include roads like Bockville Line, Taylor Line, Utah Line, Irish Line, Mount Cedar Road, and many other similar local rural roadways. And I find that like through these studies, our operating speeds are not excessively high. They typically average from 70 to 90 kilometers an hour, which gives a good indication of the speed that drivers are comfortable driving our roads at. And the traffic volumes on these roads are typically ranging 200 to 600 vehicles per day. Many of these studies have resulted in roads being dropped in speed limit from our unposted 80 to posted 60. Although these different roads may have had different road characteristics, one thing they all had in common was their function of being a local roadway. Tax guideline automatically recommends the speed limit be set to 60 kilometers per hour for local roadways, regardless of the road characteristics, meaning that even if we had a nice, flat, wide, straight road, if it still had a local characteristic or classification, it would be recommended to 60 kilometers an hour, which the majority of our roads are local roadways. With this noted, I'll pass over to Derek and John to speak to things like minimum maintenance standards and implementations of the potential policy change.
Good morning, Council. How are you this morning? I'd like to talk a little bit about the logistics and maintenance and how we set about going this report. The team worked together to make sure that we could bring this towards a more unified conclusion. We're going to follow the Transportation Association of Canada's recommendations by setting this out as a full holistic part of the roadway, by treating it as a holistic part of the roadway. If we went for the OTM manual, we would have to place 60-kilometer signs every 600 meters on every road. We'd be getting into a very large amount of budget. We'd be logistically putting it together would be very challenging for us. By implementing this approach to it, doing a holistic approach where we can actually section all the roads at 60 zone apart from our haulage routes, we can actually put the whole township as a safer level for us. It's also easier for our team to do it. It is better enforceable. It is fully supported by bylaw and the police officers. Myself, Alex, and Derek brought all our experience into this to make sure that we could do this and do it expeditiously for you too. Thank you.
Through the chair, it's a three-pronged approach. So yes, we've talked about technical evaluation guides. We've talked about how we might implement this, but this is still a point for discussion. This is not necessarily required. We can just continue to use the Highway Traffic Act de facto setting. That's 50 in the urban setting and 80 in the non-urban or rural setting. Also known as a built-up areas, the urban setting. We can continue to do that 100%, and we'll continue to review individual requests for speed limit reviews. Each time we do that, we end up having a posted speed limit lower, and we continue to slowly change the network with quite an abundance of signs. So this is an open discussion to see if there's any merit in going down this path. One thing I do want to bring to light is, one of my jobs here is to protect the corporation from liability. And of course, lowering a posted speed limit does have the natural effect of lowering a maintenance class and generally lowering our liability in a claims defense position. So that's something to note, that it does have a spin-off effect of effectively lowering municipalities' liability in claims defense position.
Okay, thank you very much. And over to the committee, please, for questions, comments. Member Taylor, please.
Well, if we want to upset our residents, this will do it. And I certainly don't support it. As you said on the second page, low volume traffic, and the people there are residents that travel to work or urban centers, and we're going to affect them 100% of the time. Good, as you say, the traffic, when we have used the black cat, that they're not excessively speeding over 80. And in recent days, we've had issues on Taylor Line, which is a 60-kilometer zone where there's stunt driving, drag racing. So I cannot support this. I think we'll get a major feedback from our residents, and I wouldn't support it. And I would take the report as information. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Member Jansen?
Thank you for putting the report together. It's interesting to learn that there is a way for us to, I guess, have all of our rural roads one standard. I'm going to agree with Member Taylor. I don't agree that we should be moving all of our roads down to a 60-kilometer limit. I believe that would be troublesome. I think we should leave it at 50 kilometers per hour in our urban settings and 80 kilometers per hour in our non-urban settings. We have received a few complaints from residents regarding speed limits on some of our rural roads, and we've dealt with them every time on a case-by-case basis, and I think that's the way that we should continue to approach this. Thank you.
Thank you. Member McIntyre?
And thank you through the chair. I have a tendency to agree with the previous two speakers. It's difficult enough at this time. For instance, on my road, I would consider that to be a non-rural road, but posted sign of 50 is just a suggestion for 75 and 80. So it comes down to how do we police it? I think we're going to have a lot of trouble trying to get it across the board 60. I think there are people who are in a hurry. Everybody's in a rush. So I have a tendency to agree with Member Jansen and Member Taylor that we should perhaps look into this a little deeper. I know you guys have worked very hard on it, but it just doesn't seem to me that the 60K across the board would work for a great number of the residents. So that's my view on it.
Thank you very much. Member Cox, please.
Yep. Through the chair to staff. I understand exactly where you're coming from, but my complaints are built up areas. My complaints I get are the Coldwater Road, the river streets, the Minoki Beach, the Artria Drive, all those ones. And that is where people are walking, and that is where people are walking on the side of the road because it's not urban, it's a rural area. When I read this and saw 60 across, and I realized that we only took Minoki to 60, then Minoki should be 50 or 40. So if we're looking at trying for safety, and I understand we have gotten a lot of, Taylor line and Bockwell line, but my concern or my advice or my comments are going to be the ones that we've had brought to us. They need to be lowered more so. Like River Street is like, as soon as they get past that doctor's office, well, even before that, they're flying through there. Minoki Beach, we've had many comments from people not feeling safe walking along there. Artria Drive we have many of those that have come to us, and I would prefer to look after the built up areas with no sidewalks and get those speed limits down. And maybe we talked about in Washega was a bigger sign to say this is what this is. But to me, that's where my concern is, because that's the safety liability area. And with us growing, we never had issues of people walking on the sides of these roads, a lot of them, because there weren't a lot of people living there. Now that more and more people are living there and they all want to get out and walk and do their active transport, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just people are driving faster and there's more traffic. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Burkett, please.
Thank you through Madam Chair. When Derek asked me what my thoughts were, and I thought at the time, well, let's bring it to council. It sounds like a good idea. And I'm listening. I'll respect the other members at this table. So I want to thank you, Derek, John, and Alex. And it hasn't gone on the way. We've got this file now that we can always revisit as our municipalities grow. And I didn't know about the liability aspect, which is an interesting comment, Derek. I didn't know that when we reduce the speed limit, we also reduce the maintenance on that road, which doesn't create as large a liability for us. So it's something that I know that you all worked hard on. So thank you very much for that. And I do appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And I too support all the comments of council. I also agree that this is an excellent report and it's got great data and great consideration. And it's going to be very useful going forward as a comparator or to make decisions. But I just think it's ahead of its time. So once some of the built up areas, and I'm most familiar with West Shore, that may work then at, going forward. Since I've been on council, I've been able to travel all across the township. And for example, taking some of the roads, not county roads, but township roads, certainly the ones that have been on the agendas in need of some TLC and attention. I like to drive on them too, to see what those are. And if I had to go 60, that's pretty slow on some of those long stretches, going for quite a distance, 30, 40 minutes at 60. I don't know that people would adhere to that. And I think that we would pose a reverse safety risk by people going the speed limit and others coming up behind and maybe passing or whatever. I also live on a very populated street in Cumberland Beach, and the sign outside my house is 50. And that's a residential street, no sidewalk. So I'm really would have trouble posting across the board at 60. So I think we're ready for a motion, please.
Thank you. Motion reads that the Public Works Report number W24-033 dated October 23rd, 2024, with respect to de facto speed limit rural roads be received as information.
Thank you. Moved by member McIntyre, seconded by member Jansen. All in favor? And carried. Thank you. I think, are we going to take a break soon or shall we get? Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break and we'll come back at 22:11. Thank you very much.
All right. We will commence with our meeting at this point. Thank you all. And the next item for us is the F23 Public Works Report 24034 Salt Management Plan Update. John Hardy and Derek Burke, please.
Thank you, through the chair. So yeah, this report is a direct, response to the change in level of service from a previous report in August, I believe it was. And where we are is we're using more salt. And as a result of that, we wanted to bolster our salt management plan. So in and around 2005, the Environment Canada recognized salt as a pollutant and required municipalities to prepare salt management plans so that there was some thought with how you distribute salt in the environment, what you're using it for, how you're handling it, storing it, and reporting it. And so we haven't done an update to our policy for a little while. And since we're increasing our salt usage, we thought it was a good time to update the plan. There's a few new components to the plan. One is to continue to report to the Environment Canada website for the salt usage. It'll just be higher for next year's reporting, but also to use technology and tools to better track that. So we've upgraded some spreaders, that's the material spreaders in the trucks, to allow us to record the rate of application and spatially, so we can report better, especially in our vulnerable areas where the source water protection plan enacts a wellhead protection zone or intake protection zone. We can report better the quantity of salt that we distributed in those areas. That's our first step, and then we'll retrofit additional fleet with the new spreader controllers as we go along. And also setting a very clear application rate and making sure that those spreaders are calibrated so that we're not over salting and that we're not under salting, again, for that liability concern. So we have the technology to do that. And the last little bit here is some of our snow storage areas. So where we take snow dumps, bridges, bridge decks, and downtown cores, we remove snow and put it somewhere. Well, that snow does have some contaminant levels in it, and with salt, there'd be some more. So defining where we put those snow dumps and having environmental controls to make sure they're not going directly into a coldwater fishery, or let's say a wellhead protection zone intake, or actually more important is the surface water intake zones. And so that's our plan. In the appendix is the plan itself. You see some major changes in this plan. And actually more recently, the Severn Sound Environmental Association team had reviewed our draft and made a couple of comments. And I'm just going to summarize a few of the comments here. They said very, very well thought out plan and met the expectations of source water protection. There was three areas for improvement. One was to consider an environmental monitoring program. So that would be a physical sampling of water courses nearby the snow dumps or in areas that we've had heavy salt use or heavier salt use. That's not something we have proposed here. It could be quite substantially costly to continue an environmental monitoring program, but it is something that we could consider for the future. And also for new technology enhancements of our material, our fundamental material application style. So what this is right now we have rock salt or sand coming out of the trucks. And there are technologies where you pre-wet those materials with a brine product and they make them more effective. Therefore, you can use less, better spread rate, less scatter on the road. So these are all things, but they're very costly. They change our fleet immensely. There's new tanks on the side of the fleet that would be required and new appurtenances. So it's something we could consider in the future to have pre-wet or anti-ice capability, but it's not something we put in this 2025 edition of the plan. And lastly is just to include reference to the best synthesis practices of salt management issued by Environment Canada. And we'll just do that at the time of release. So it'll be a small amendment to include the reference to that synthesis. So that's the summary of the salt management plan. If you have any questions?
Yeah, through the committee. Yes, to Member Taylor.
Yeah, through the chair, Derek, I'm glad that you involved SSEA. It's just it reinforces the idea that they're there to help us and guide us. And I appreciate you going to there and getting feedback and implementing what they've recommended as well.
Yeah, Member Cox.
Yeah, through the chair. I'm looking at the financial considerations, and the 19.8 and the 12.5, we're spending it this year for our 24-25 season?
Yeah, through the chair. So we have taken in, I believe it was 1,200 ton of salt and put that in our domes along with our sand as a direct response to the August Corporate Services Committee, where we said we'd try this as a pilot. And so that would be reflected as well into your next year's budget. But that some of the first acquisition is occurring in 2024 fiscal year.
Okay, supplemental through the chair. So Derek, so it says here it will enhance 4 plow units and temperature sensors on 6 patroller fleet units. So what do we need next?
So through the chair, that'll satisfy us for this full season, this winter control season. The temperature sensors are done. Like we'll really only need the 6 temperature sensors. They're primarily on patrol vehicles. And what we're looking for there is getting accurate data of the road surface temperature so we can apply the rates that are appropriate for that temperature. Once again, minimizing the salt use if we can. The other spreaders, there's 4 purchased. There's 12 units in total that we would have to. So another 2 renditions of 4 each, and we're looking to do that over the next 3 years. So kind of ease the burden of cost. And as we acquire new fleet, we will add this new spreader to it. So it'll kind of happen over the next 3 years.
Supplemental. So we're going to have 4 that have the spreader controls and 8 that don't?
So through the chair, it's not that they don't have spreader controls, it's just that they don't have smart versions of the spreader controls. And this is that data that's going to help us track better and report back to SSEA and monitor our salt use in high vulnerable areas. That's where we're deploying the first 4. But what we want to do is upgrade all 12 over the next 3 years.
Okay, and then so if you've upgraded a plow unit and then we trade it in, do we keep that unit and put it on the next one, or does it go with it?
So through the chair, we can repurpose some. However, there's a pretty large installation cost. It's not so much the device, it's the install. Once we get through the retrofit, these trucks last 10 years. By the 10th year and by most of their service life, let's say if a 2-year-old truck got a unit today, 8 years is actually pretty long for technology to be in place. It's not as usable for the next fleet renewal.
So would I be remiss in saying, why wouldn't we just do it at once so they're all done? But unless you have a truck that you're thinking about trading in within a year or 2, you know what I mean? So we're all on the same page and we're doing this. But I mean, I may be wrong. I just like some costing on that. If you could bring it forward, maybe for budget, because I think if we're going to do this, to do it right, we should start it and do it, except for older vehicles if you can't reuse it.
Yeah, through the chair,
I think it's important for the environment.
Through the chair, absolutely. We will bring that to budget with a couple options to just accelerate and get the rest of the fleet done. And ones we're just trying to be ease the burden of financial output on this particular service area.
Well, I agree, but like for 20,000 for 4, that's not that bad. And if it's going to be good for the environment and it will help us with what the SSEA has recommended, I think it's important. Thank you.
Member Burkett? Through the chair to Derek, but I think, don't we mix today with our sand, we mix a bit of salt in it, correct?
Yeah, through the chair, it's not at a percent rate that makes it effectively a de-icing agent. It just keeps the sand to be fluid. In these colder temperatures, any moisture in the sand, it sort of bulks up and it's hard to go through the chains and out the spreader. So it's at about 5 to 6% pickled, which isn't enough to actually do a de-icing activity.
So supplementary, I may through the chair. So this has been spurred by, is it a mandate by the province, or is it just something for an added service that we're going to provide so we don't have an accident on some of the icy roads because of the change in weather?
So through the chair, it's not mandated by the province to use a freeze suppression or de-icing tool. The province basically says in the minimum maintenance standards that you have to apply a treatment. Right now we use pickled sand. That's just what we use, and we've used it forever. in the last report in August, we note that in a lot of these freeze conditions in the shoulder seasons of the year, the sand is not, it's effective, but it's not as effective as neighboring municipality and road authorities, which are using salt. Most are, and especially in closer to the GTA's region. And so what we presented was that we would try this as a pilot, use a bit of salt cautiously in very local climate conditions. So in that -5 and potential rain coming in at the night, we can then burn off the ice with the salt, get down to the hard pack, and then plow that off, better than having simply traction on top of ice. And so it's just it's an enhancement to the service. It's not legislated per se, but it's definitely going to assist in our reduction of liability and also just enhancing the road operations.
Member McIntyre?
Thank you through the chair, Derek. I see $125,000 for the salt. Is that, I think that's pretty low from my perspective. Is that sent out for a bid? Is there a bid process on that? And let's do that first.
Absolutely. And I want to give a bit of a shout out to the Georgian Bay Area Group Purchasing Association. So we're part of a collection of agencies that pool together and create quite a massive procurement opportunity and long range. So there's multiple years in that. The city of Barrie, I believe, leads it, and we participate in it. And right now our supplier, I believe, is Compass Minerals, but it goes out to public tender. We get best pricing, and then we secure that pricing for multi-year. So that's how we acquire our salt, and acquire it at a rate that's quite reasonable.
Thank you very much.
Member Jansen, do you have a question? You're good. Thank you. Member Taylor, then?
Yeah, just to follow up the observation and hopefully an answer. I saw the mixing of the north yard, sand and salt. And then I see now it's almost pure salt at the front of the, I'm just thinking, how logistically do you get at the mixed sand with the salt in the way? That's just, maybe you can enlighten me on how that's going to work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So this part of the discussion was going to come in the next report, but what Derek has explained to you, where we have a certain amount of mixed sand or pickle sand on one side, we've also stacked some raw materials on the other side so that we can actually react to the freezing temperatures. We can have a different string to the different bow for the different weather. So we're going to be mindful. We're going to train our staff. We're going to have protocols and policies so that we can actually use raw salt as and when we need it to make sure we can adapt to those weathers that we're going to face.
Through the chair, just one added part about the physical doing it. It's so there's just one side and a little bit of sand on the other side, and it is the shoulder seasons where we expect to use the salt most, which is why we put the salt earlier in the bin, right? So that we can get at the salt, use it in the Novembers and Decembers, and when the shoulder season is creating a bunch of ice up conditions, in the nice cold season of January and February, we actually just get a lot of snow. And snow, even at those temperatures, you can't use salt to address it anyway. It's a very ineffective tactic. So we put the salt up front and we put it off to the left so we can access both parts in the shoulder season, but predominantly salt in the shoulder season, if that makes any sense.
Thank you. That's what I observed. Thank you.
Well, good. Yes, thank you then for the report and clarifying those things. From my point of view, appreciate you. It's a challenge to balance safety, and salt is a very damaging agent to our waterways and streams. So the fact that you are staying on top of it is very appreciated. Can we have a motion, please?
Certainly, the motion reads that Public Works Report number W24-034 dated October 23rd, 2024, with respect to the salt management plan update be received, and further that the proposed salt management plan policy be adopted and included in the corporate policy manual.
Mover? Member Taylor? Seconder, Member McIntyre, all in favor? All right, moving to the F 2.4 Public Works Report W24-035 Winter Control Policy Update, John Hardy and Derek Burke.
Thank you, Council. As I interluded just a moment ago, the two reports are almost hand in hand with the control policy and this report as well. It just refines our updated winter control policy. I define classifications on our roads and our material application rates, and of course, our different resources and our different approaches to winter controlness this year, with mixed sand, raw sand available, and a higher mixed rate sand available. Thank you.
Do we have any questions from committee? Seeing none, may we have a motion, please?
Certainly. So the motion reads the Public Works Report number W24-035 dated October 23rd, 2024. With respect to winter control policy be received, and further that the proposed winter control policy be adopted and included in the corporate policy manual.
Moved by Member Burkett. Seconded by Member Cox. All in favor? Motion passes. All right, we're moving on now to item 4.1, Administrative Report A24032, Bylaw Violations and Complaints Policy Update. And that would be our clerk.
Yes. Thank you. So general update to our bylaw enforcement policy. We haven't looked at it in a couple of years based on things that we have observed and seen over the last couple of years, just making some recommendations on some updates. So the more important one actually mirrors what the city of Orillia has put in place about a year or so ago, is that if we put in a proactive frequent flyer, I call it the frequent flyer cause, so that if we have a property that turns into being a repeat offender, staff have the ability to proactively enforce that property after a certain number of complaints are received, rather than having to constantly wait for fresh complaints to come in. Again, if the ownership changes, then we would start from scratch again to be fair to the new owners. Beyond that, it also establishes the one circumstance where we would be permanently able to proactively enforce, and that is when there is a immediate threat to health and safety. So this again, unsafe swimming pools. So this would be unfenced swimming pools, unsafe residential units, health and safety concerns related to snow and ice removal. So we're talking like roofs that are going to collapse if they have too much of a snow load and they're not dealing with it. Structures not in accordance with the building code, or any other violation that's going to cause a serious safety issue. So I'm really trying to narrow that down though and still keep it focused, but would allow us to deal with also something like a hoarding situation or things like that. So.
Thank you. Any questions from committee? Member Taylor.
Yeah, through the chair to Allison. Quite often people are afraid to complain, and they hope that it's anonymous, but you're saying even now, if it were to go to court, their names would come forward. Is there anything different here, or is it, because quite often people are reluctant to, in cases that they're going to get compromised by the people that they're complaining about?
So when it comes to bylaw complaints, I'm going to caution two things. One, if it's an ongoing neighbor dispute and all of a sudden there's a formal complaint and bylaw shows up, most neighbors can figure out based on an ongoing neighbor dispute who's the one that's complained. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. A huge chunk of the number of complaints we get are based off pre-existing neighbor disputes. So when a formal complaint comes in and we end up knocking on a door based on what's been going on for the last couple of weeks, months, 6 months to a year, they have a pretty good inclination as to where it's coming from. So while we consider it to be confidential, many neighbors at least kind of think they figure out where it comes from. So staff absolutely do treat it as confidential. The only time where we would release that is if we end up in court. And if we end up in court, we normally end up reaching out to the individual to say, okay, this matter is going to court. We'd like you to appear as a witness. And so they have the right to say no, but it means then that we normally can't use their complaint as evidence. We can use only our investigation notes going forward as the evidence that's entered into court. So even the Privacy Commissioner's Office. So if we get a complaint after a file is closed for a bylaw enforcement matter, so only after the matter is closed, we've been ordered, and most municipalities have at this point, to release the general content of the complaint. The name is redacted. Anything that would reference the complainant's property is redacted, but the general gist of what that complaint is, the Privacy Commissioner's Office says no longer is an open enforcement issue, so it should be released. So it's the balance between privacy and confidentiality and right to transparency these days. So it's balancing that. Again, in here, it does say that we would take anonymous complaints if it turns out to, and we'll track them. But it doesn't mean we're going to act on them unless there's a health and safety issue, like a serious life safety issue. So if someone calls us and says, you know, I'm not giving you my name and address, but you know, the roof of someone 2 doors down the street from me is about to implode because of snow load, we're going to go and check that out to make sure that the house doesn't collapse. We've had one a couple of years ago where someone called in anonymously and it was the middle of winter. It was a cottage. They'd gone south and their front doors had blown in. And so their cottage was wide open to anyone who was walking by. So we sent them a note and they closed it up. So, stuff like that. So we can't prevent names if we end up in court from coming forward. But again, the individual has a choice to say we don't want to appear, and then we can't really use them as evidence.
Just a supplemental. So has this update changed from the previous one? That's all I was getting at.
No, the handling of the confidentiality complaints has been the par for the course for quite a while now. We're just putting that actually into policy, so it's upfront and people are aware of it, to make sure that if they put a complaint, they can't say that they didn't see the policy online, because this is a policy, one of the few we have that is actively posted online. So that when people complain, they can see that if they post or they submit a complaint, it is confidential, but there's the chance that if it goes to court, that it may have to be released. But again, they're involved in that discussion when that happens.
Any other questions? Oh, yes, Member Jansen.
Thank you. And through the chair, Ms. Gray, is it a different document where we talk about the fees that are associated with bylaw violations, or should it be contained in this document?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So if you're talking about fines,
Fines, yeah.
they're attached to the individual bylaws and they're approved by the Office of the Attorney General. So they're actually not up to council to set. So we submit, and we have some of the highest in the entire county. Because my practice and knowledge has been that when they go to court, that the first thing the courts do is half them, which is why most people appeal them to court. It's just so that they can get their fines reduced. So we deliberately put ours pretty high so that in the event that someone goes to court, that is somewhat mitigated as to how much we still end up collecting. So when the future Good Neighbor bylaw updates come forward, which I anticipate will start in the new year, just started reviewing them. Then once council approves those, then we take the enforcement clauses within those. We draft a set fine schedule. We send those off to the Ministry of the Attorney General. And if we set them too high, they will reduce them. There's only a certain height that they will allow on how severe set fines can be. Now, if we have a repeat property, and we've issued a couple existing set fines to them, we can do what we call a Part 3 summons, which is where we actually haul them into court. And we asked and request the courts to give us a higher penalty. We just recently completed that with the property last week. So, and we're successful in that. The trick is sometimes we have to be careful and gauge how much we're looking to get, and we have to have a proven case before we're going to go down that path, right? So if it's a first offense, unless it's pretty heavy and severe, we're not immediately going to go to a Part 3. We're going to start with what the set fines are because it's a first offense and go from there, right? So there's a bit of officer judgment that comes into play here, depending on the severity of what we're dealing with. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, call for a motion, please.
Motion reads that the administration report number A24-032 dated October 23rd, 2024 regarding bylaw violations and complaints policy update be received, and that the updated bylaw violations and complaint policy be approved.
Mover. Moved by Member Burkett, seconded by Member McIntyre. All in favor? Motion is passed. All right, moving on to new business. We have item G1, the Royal Canadian Legion Coldwater Branch 270 Poppy Campaign Request. And can I ask Allison, who's to speak to that?
Thank you. We get this request every year or so. A couple years back, I think was the last time we saw it. Some years we get it, some years we don't, but we do actively put a poppy box at the counter and stuff like that. But a couple years ago, I believe the treasurer informed me that we gave them a donation of about $500 towards the poppy campaign. So it's whatever council wants to award. We have the funds in the remaining grants budget for this year.
Thank you. Committee?
I'm gonna let the deputy mayor speak.
Oh, go ahead.
I agree, but I think I have a pecuniary interest because I'm a Legion member.
Can I speak then?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you do need to actually like go on the mic, Mayor Mike and Deputy Mayor Cox, and actually Mayor Mike, you need to declare yourself, Mayor Mike, before you leave. I know Deputy Mayor Cox has, but
Through the chair, I'm a Legion member as well.
Thank you. We will proceed then, and I'll ask Mr. Member Taylor to speak to this.
Not to stick my neck out, but I think November the 11th is Remembrance Day, and I would like to recommend whatever we gave last year, we would match that. It's $500. But I'll let Mr. Plunkett speak.
If I can, through the chair, to Member Taylor, I don't know if we gave them anything last year, but the last time we gave them something, it was $500.
So that would be my recommendation. I'll let.
All right. Yes, Member McIntyre.
Thank you, through the chair. Can you inform us how much money we do have left over, Madam Clerk, from our grants?
If I can, through the chair, just looking at the current grants list, there's about 19,000 in contingency.
1,900.
Supplementary, if do we have a number of outstanding requests for more?
I'm sorry?
Do we have a number of outstanding requests for grants?
We'll have to touch base after the fact with the treasurer. So for all the ones that were awarded at budget, the checks have been cut. So we'd have to check and see what that amount is.
Yeah, we'll have to go through and see what we've added to the list since.
Okay, well, okay, never mind all that. I'll just agree with Mr. Taylor that $500 particularly since they didn't ask for anything last year. I'll agree with that.
Member Jansen, do you have a comment?
I would also support the $500 amount. Just for clarification, I heard two amounts. I heard Mr. Plunkett say 19,000 and Ms. Gray say 1,900. Was left in the reserve.
Mr. Plunkett is going to look into that. I believe Member McIntyre was just looking for the number as to what in general was remaining from the 2024 grants budget, not with respect to proposing 1,900 or 19,000 for the Poppy Fund. So.
Understood that part. Okay.
Thank you. I will agree with Member McIntyre. I think we can have a motion on this right now. I fully support the $500.
Okay. Motion reads then that the Township of Severn provide a grant in the amount of $500 to the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 270 Coldwater Poppy Trust Fund.
Mover. Member Jansen, seconder, Member McIntyre, all in favor? Come back in now. If you behave yourself.
All right. So that's when we go from the problem.
Good. Committee member updates. So we will start with Mr. Member Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. I've got 4 items to speak to. First one's County of Simcoe. October the 8th, I was an alternate counselor for Mayor Burkett. Quite educational there and lots going on there. And I look forward to their update from the county coming up as well. Mariposa Hospice, October 17th. I was there to watch the check presentation for the different hospices around. What an impressive operation there on Brody Drive. The mayor, deputy mayor, Councillor Brennan and McIntyre were in attendance, and it's just a great experience to go there. SSEA, we have our quarterly meeting tomorrow. Should be an interesting one, and I'll keep you updated on that. And finally, Coldwater Mill. A couple things in November here. Saturday, November the 2nd, children's Christmas market from 11 to 2. And the Christmas market in general, with all the vendors are there on Saturday, November 16th and 23rd from 10 to 3. So lots happening at the mill, and I'll pass it on to the chair.
Thank you, Member Taylor. And Member Cox?
Okay, the library board. We had our library board, you're gonna come up here. We had our library board meeting, and we had a letter from the Orillia Library Board that said the membership amount will stay the same for next year, 2025. That was from the former CAO. Then we got another one saying that they were going to increase our rates. So we had a discussion and we said, we'll just go back and ask them. Well, we're keeping the same rates. They're not going to increase us. It was only $1,200, but $1,200 is $1,200 as a principal to that. The library again is very busy. Lots of people going in and out and using it. I had my first Coochaching Police Services Board meeting. Very interesting. We're doing budget in November. We had a lot of policy issues and things to discuss. So I'm hoping we sort of get more into the police services things at the next meeting. I'm saying. And I had talked to Member Minnings, and when she had discussed the subsidizing of utility rates, I spoke to Mina Fahabas. How do you say his name again? Fahabasad. Anyway, he's the general manager of social services at the county. There are programs out there and available. One is called the Housing Retention Program, and the United Way also helps seniors with utilities. So I was just wondering maybe if there's some of those things we could discuss with the CAO and our communication person for some of that information to come that we could push through for the county for people. So it's there, or the 211 to let them know about those types of things. The other one I was going to discuss just went straight out of my head. Hospice. They are opening up their 6th room because they had an extra one, and they were looking for support from us in writing, I think, for the other 4. They're not asking for any money for it. They just want to put their extra 5 rooms on. A county council yesterday, the biggest thing was the raise. We make about $18,000 a year. That's our base rate plus per diems. And the option was to go to $47,000 and take the warden from $80,000 to $180,000. And I spoke against it, and so did the mayor. So we didn't win. But what happened was, what they're doing is they're going to do increments next year, the year after, and the year after, so that then in the next term, they can bound into the $47,000 a year. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I heard all sorts of rationale for it. I heard that, you know, we need more younger people on and we have to pay higher wages. And I get that. But when we're only doing 10 or 9 meetings a year and we do agendas a month in some of them, I just found that it was a very high increase all at once, that we should have eased up maybe more. And maybe over the years, they should have increased it more. So that was the most important thing I was on the agenda yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Burkett.
Through the chair, and I think everything was covered, but that was an interesting discussion yesterday, about an hour and a half, about whether or not we should increase our wages or not. And I wasn't in favor. Thank God it was a recorded vote. And I understand the rationale. I didn't, when I ran, didn't even know that I was getting paid. Never looked, you know, like I said, why wasn't it done why now after 14 years? And now we're going to look at our wages and whether or not they're comparable. But, you know, you look at what's going on within our own municipality and right across the country, like that's a huge amount of money. over the next 3 years. Other than the roundtable that I went to and the other things that I attended this month, those are my comments.
Thank you, Member Burkett. Member McIntyre.
Thank you through the chair. I wonder what the appetite of the public's going to be for $47,000 and 180,000, whatever. Aside from that, we have a Chicago Christmas parade meeting this evening, 5:00, Chicago Community Center. We're looking for more volunteers, take everybody we can get. I too went to, as it was mentioned, to the Mariposa Hospice. Eye-popping, remarkable group of people for what they do and how they do it. I don't know how they do it. As far as what else is going on, I guess I pretty well covered. We only have the parade and that hospice thing, so that'll be my report. I'll go to Mr. Jans.
Thank you. Member Jensen, please.
Thank you very much. And through the chair, I belong to two committees. One's the Southeastern Georgian Bay Chamber of Commerce. The other is the Coldwater Business Improvement Area, the BIA. SEGBAY was here earlier today providing a presentation. I will say they kicked off their Oktoberfest event in collaboration with Muskoka Tourism on October the 21st at Raleigh Resort. And we have another meeting again next week, Tuesday, our regular meeting. Our AGM and awards dinner is coming up on November the 28th at Raleigh Resort for the Business Improvement Area, the BIA. Over the past weekend, we held our two signature events, the Witches Walk and Trick or Treat Main Street. Both events were very successful. The Witches Walk, of course, was beautiful weather. At night, it attracted thousands of participants. Very well attended. Lots of great feedback from the people that came out. And the very next day, a quick turnaround, 10 a.m. There was hundreds of families out for the trick or treat day on Main Street. I would say lots of amazing costumes, very cute and creative. And a shout out to Deputy Mayor Cox for leading the costume walk around the Main Street. I believe that the kids really enjoyed it and the parents probably enjoyed it even more. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to hand the chair over to Member Taylor. I've got just 3 committees to report on. I'll start with the Orillia District Chamber of Commerce. I'm just going to sum it up to say this is Small Business Week. Until October 27th, there are displays, webinars, demonstrations, and all available. Lots of information is available through the website. You may have business people that are interested in some of these opportunities, and the price is right. Also, and I believe it's Monday, we are meeting with senior members of the chamber to discuss perspectives on economic growth, and that should be a good opportunity for us to share where we think we fit in this growing world. So that's one there. Next, I'll do the Orillia and Lake Country physician recruitment. Just a few things. These are good times, and as much as one can make good times. I mean, the announcement about Philpott that we've heard in the last 2 days. 5 years to solve the problem? Interestingly enough, that's 2 elections away. But that nonetheless, it's nice to see someone of her stature where she is, and it should help us with this committee work. We welcome 2 year-long residents, 2 doctors recently. Dr. Ben Mora is replacing a retiring doctor in the community at this time. We've had 2 doctors tour the community and met new faces. We're hopeful there. Another doctor is now settled in and is sharing a practice. I'm not going to mention all names. I'm not sure that would be appropriate. But we have a recurring family medical locum who has relocated here from Toronto. And while they are not going to have a family practice of their own, they have a keen interest in public health, sexual health clinic work, and they work with the Lighthouse in Orillia. So that's great. We hosted 10 Canadian medical students in the community over the summer months. I don't think I mentioned that previously. The doctor that I toured, and I think I might have mentioned this, I ran into her family at a restaurant and her husband's parents, and they have moved into my ward on one of the streets I toured them to. So I'm really delighted, and they will be here December 4th. And finally, not finally, just two more. Our recruitment team, our recruiter and Dr. Ben and Elizabeth McNall have gone to Ireland and England for their recruitment. And just to show you how important this is, I think it's in Britain, they have registered 180 existing doctors have come to listen to them pitch Simcoe County, particularly our area. These aren't the students. These are existing doctors in Britain that may or may not be interested in coming here. 180, so they're making a difference there, and I hope that they have a great experience. We have a family medicine forum November 6th to 9th, participating with members from Barrie and Midland as the Central Ontario Physician Recruitment Alliance. We're doing a lot of cooperative work now. And we have an engagement task force as part of the committee that is trying to help encourage people to come. They're trying to stay up to date on local events, work on things like finding housing, childcare, accountants, things of that sort, trying to make it a little easier for anyone who's considered the move. So lots of good stuff going on in that committee. And finally, Otis Park. I'm hoping I sent some photos to Allison. I'm hoping she can show us a couple of these. We've just finished with the fall fair this year. It was it's been moved to later in the year. We brought in more amusements and the midway and things like that. And we were blessed for the first time this year with absolutely phenomenal weather. So this is a panoramic view. This was not even the biggest crowd day that we had. This was Sunday, and this was the car derby. I have never seen a car derby before. And yeah, it's a demolition derby. And the one that I actually saw, if I can just see, there's a panoramic view that you just need to see the crowd here. But this was the women. Now, I've always thought you have to have a lot of respect for women because you never know what's going on in their heads. But when you see women in a demolition derby, there's this one woman. There was a woman there that I know her from the board, and nice, soft-spoken woman. I think she came in second with more ramming and rear-ending than I could even imagine anyone doing. And we were very proud of her as a Severn resident. So this is the derby. And if we can just move 4 of these, just to give you an idea of the Sunday afternoon crowd. The venues ran on Sunday late into the night. We were expecting 40 registrants for the derby. And because there was a huge one in Lindsay the day before, we didn't think we were going to get the uptake. We had 180 people register for that, as opposed to 40. So it was going 4 hours. There was more diesel and smashed metal than you can imagine. So very exciting. And there's one more photo there, I think. But just gives you an idea. The people just loved it. There were entries from way up north. Just really exciting. The last photo there, if I may, that's me being a big shot sitting on a skid steer with the president of Otis Park. He was picking up dead cars after each of the rallies, and I was trying to tell him what to do. But anyway, we had a great time, lots of fun. And I'm telling you, the slaughterhouse on Friday night lined up from the buildings to down the roadway. We were backed up. It was huge. And so this was a big event for Severn. Lots of people came. I am sure local merchants benefited from this. Sure, heck, the gas stations did based on the number of trucks in the park. So anyway, it was really great, and it was great to have that event end the way it did. So hopefully next year will be just as great. Therein is my report. Yes,
Yeah,
Number
there's
two.
one I didn't add on Saturday, October the 19th. The mayor, deputy mayor, and I were in Severn Falls for the end of the summer celebration. So well attended even after you guys left, more came, but it was a beautiful day. It was advanced because of different reasons, but I enjoyed it, and thank you.
Thank you, Member Taylor. And now, Chief Administrative Officer updates, please.
Thank you. Last week I was at the Ontario Municipal Administrators Association conference. So that was my first big event as president. And I got to speak to an MC for a group of 220 people. So a big stretch for my public speaking skills, but the more I do it, the more comfortable I get. Some great topics, things to think about in the future. I think the two that resonated most with me was there was a couple of sessions on all the cool projects that municipalities are doing with artificial intelligence. So some interesting work being done around the county and around Ontario. And the other one that was of great interest, and I got to figure out how I can package it for council, was about how, I don't know how to phrase this. It was about the squeaky wheel, about how the population that you hear about from Facebook and your frequent flyers represent about 6% of your population, and about how council really needs to focus on the majority and not the squeaky wheel. And there was some really interesting data on that. The presentation was by a company that was sort of selling their services to get beyond that. And I'm not sure that works, because we've tried some, but the underlying data was fascinating and kind of a good thing for council to know. So it was good couple of days. We also had great weather, although I never got to leave the hotel, so I didn't. We were in a great place, but I didn't see it. But it was a good time and lots of education and some growth for me. So it's good.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, am I correct? Oh. Yes. Member Burkett.
Thank you to the chair, and congratulations, Laurie, on that. And I've been saying all along about Facebook, but nobody believes me. I guess you have to pay a consultant. I knew that years ago, but thank you for having a good week and what you've done. Perfect.
Member Cox.
Yeah, through the chair. And I agree about the Facebook, but it's not just Facebook. It's somebody saying there's 10 of us and then we don't want all this. And that's only, it's the same idea. And I'm really happy to hear that, we have to look at that part of it, that we can't always just listen to the squeaky wheels. Thank you.
If I might follow that up through the chair, there was a really interesting kind of example. They gave some examples. So one was a municipality was doing a survey on should we have the arena open all summer? And when they dug down into the data, the feedback was overwhelmingly positive, but when you dug down into it, the only people that answered the survey was the hockey parents, because somebody mounted a campaign and got all the hockey parents. So the analogy was, so it's up to council to figure out what's best for the entire residents, because what's best for the hockey parents might not be fiscally responsible or best for your constituents at large. So you really got to think about where the data is coming from and what's driving that. So it was quite interesting.
No more questions. Yeah, I'd be fascinated to see any information on that myself, as to how we could take advantage of that kind of knowledge and background. Thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have a closed session? No closed session. All right. Then that's it.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. This meeting is adjourned.
11:30 a.m. It is our habit in our bylaws, so.
Right. Can we have a mover then? Moved by Member Taylor, seconded Member McIntyre. All in favor? Done. It's a bad habit.